We're talking to Swami Krishnapada from the Institute for Applied Spiritual Technology. And of course, Swami Krishnapada, before we had our first commercial break, we were talking about some of the things in your background and the advice that you've given to world leaders and et cetera. But let's talk about the Institute for Applied Spiritual Technology as an institute, because you are the director of that institute. Let's give you an opportunity during this segment to talk about that institute and some of the things that you think you are able to achieve and some of the things that you believe to be challenges that face you.
Mm-hmm. Some years back, I began to notice very distinctly that there were many people and organizations that were very astute, materially. Mm-hmm. And there's another side of people who were very involved deeply in spirituality. Mm-hmm. But there was a problem in finding an organization that could do both. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to create an organization based in America, but that would have international influence, mm-hmm. where you would have spiritual people who are professional, material professionals, mm-hmm. and who are using their professions to raise consciousness, mm-hmm. in a very kind of interdisciplinary way, mm-hmm. non-sectarian way. So we have an institution out of Washington, out of Capitol Hill, mm-hmm. where we have this amazing group of people. It's very cosmopolitan, of all different races, mm-hmm. all different religious backgrounds, different political persuasions, mm-hmm. etc. We have constant seminars and workshops. Mm-hmm. We are going to conferences constantly. We have health retreats. Mm-hmm. We have a lot of people, for instance, who are doctors, who are allopathic doctors as well as naturopath doctors. Mm-hmm. And they particularly address things from a holistic perspective. Mm-hmm. Just as a few weeks ago, I was one of the guest speakers at the yearly conference for the National American Medical Association. Mm-hmm. So these are doctors from all over the country. Mm-hmm. And my particular presentation was in the family practice section. Mm-hmm. So we had a chance to show how there's a need for serious healing, that the doctors are sometimes experiencing toxic consciousness, the patients, mm-hmm. the planet, and the community in general. Mm-hmm. And there's a need for addressing these issues in a more holistic way, mm-hmm. so that we look at the inner as well as the outer aspect. Mm-hmm. A few days ago I was in Atlanta, and I was one of the guest speakers at the yearly meeting or yearly conference, mm-hmm. for the Religious News Writers Association. Mm-hmm. So in each of these conferences, people from the Institute would go along with me. Mm-hmm. We would present various things to assist in those areas, or we network in a way of professional people meeting professional people, seeing how we can make a difference at this very critical time in world history.
You know, at that Atlanta conference, I think you gave a paper there on African Americans and world religions. Let's talk about that. I mean, since, as you've indicated earlier, that you are the only African American guru in the world, and as I said earlier, people are still, I think, intrigued by the marvelous transformation in terms of where you started from and where you are now. But how did you become involved in a real sense from that perspective? Let's do it from that perspective.
So the distinction I hold is the only African or black, African or African American Vaishnava guru. Now, Vaishnavism is a certain aspect of the Hindu family. Mm-hmm. See, there are worshippers who worship many, many gods, polytheism in Hinduism. Mm-hmm. There are worshippers who worship the impersonal aspect of God. Mm-hmm. But the Vaishnava system recognizes that there's one God. Mm-hmm. Whether you call God Allah, Yahweh, Jehovah, or as we say Krishna, mm-hmm. it's the same God. Mm-hmm. And that God is particularly taking notice of the consciousness, mm-hmm. and our hearts. Mm-hmm. He's not so concerned with whether we're praying in English and French and Swahili and Arabic and Sanskrit, etc. Mm-hmm. But is concerned about the quality.
We pray.
About the quality. Mm-hmm. Now in the Vaishnava line, we also understand that there are many bona fide prophets and there are bona fide traditions. Mm-hmm. And that the same God who sent Moses, who sent Jesus, who sent Buddha, mm-hmm. who sent Ramanujacharya, Madhavacharya, and Bhargavacharya, and many other great teachers, is the same God. Mm-hmm. And that if we look close at their message, the message is very homogeneous or very similar. Mm-hmm. The message can be looked at in three aspects. Mm-hmm. First, every bona fide religion says one should love God with all one's heart. Mm-hmm. We call this surrender or sarangati. Second is that one should love one's neighbor as oneself. We call this dasu dasono, dasu being the servant of others. And three is that this world is not our home. So these are three distinct essential factors of all bona fide teachings, and the prophets come to facilitate that. But unfortunately, the majority of people on the planet practice their religion as if God is only for them, and as if there's no other bona fide practitioners or literatures, etc. And this is another form of tribalism, racism, etc.
And so your main aim is to bring about a greater diversity among the way folks, while you recognize that there are these different worship and methods, that you're trying to bring about a greater uniformity among all of these various groups under these three major ideas.
And that is what is most natural. Life is very variegated. And when there is unity with diversity, we have the most powerful synchronistic scheme. But when there is diversity and there's not unity, then there's fragmentation. So if we really love God, then we can go deep and deep into our own bona fide tradition, be chaste to that, but because we are lovers and experiencing deep consciousness, we'll appreciate others who are also experiencing deep consciousness. See, every religion and tradition has its hypocrites, and every tradition has those who are being more genuine into that tradition. So as we go deep into the tradition, there's great wealth. Now, I involve myself more in the Vedic tradition, because the Vedic tradition is literally has the oldest scriptures practically known to humankind, and also some of the most encyclopedic. And it's very eclectic, very universal, and very much attuned to the beauties of other traditions.
It does not separate itself from.
Exactly, exactly. And my own background and upbringing is that I kept seeing how sectarianism is fragmenting the world. I did not want to play into that. I realized that how can I worship a God who's sectarian? That God is not like that. So therefore, people who practice like that cannot be so much genuine lovers of God. So I went back to these ancient traditions to be able to understand my Christian backgrounds better. So I'm really still a Christian in the real sense. See, there's a difference between churchianity and Christianity.
And perhaps in terms of that worldview, and especially since you mentioned all of those ideas that many people associate with Christ, you know, love God with all your heart, and that more than anything probably brings about a greater unity among what you're saying. And let us take this second commercial break, and we'll be back with our audience following this second commercial break.